Yeah, hi everyone. Thanks for having me in. My name is André. I'm here from ZF, manager for ZF middleware platform in R&D in the core software. And yeah, the topic today is adaptive cruise control demo application for Adaptive Autosar. And as you potentially agree, this is quite a enormous title for something to share, and that's why ADAAA comes in handy, and we will refer to it as ADAAA from here. A bit of background. I think a lot of things have been said already, but just to bring everybody on the same page. So the Adaptive Autosar, I think it's potentially the biggest standard we have at the moment when it comes to service-oriented architectures on high-performance computers for the software-defined vehicle. And so it matters a lot, not to us, but to the automotive industries. And we have realized that quite early and been in the AUTOSAR community since a long time and are users of Adaptive Autosar also since a while. In 2019, we founded an in-house expert team that works as an enabler for in-house projects in ZF, and we share the insights and share the methodology with new developers that switch to the Adaptive Autosar stack. And recently we have started condensing these narratives and the explanations into a common project that is the ADAAA. And I don't want to keep you waiting. I would like to show you what it is. So what you see here is the use case. So it's a very basic use case. We just felt it should be automotive. So it's the adaptive cruise control use case. You see here there is a car. It accelerates and decelerates. And there are two modes, the ACC on and the ACC off. If the ACC is off, then you use brake and accelerator to drive the car. If the ACC is on, you use this speed up and speed down button to accelerate, decelerate the car. I think that is quite a common feature and everybody can relate to it. It was important for us to take something simple, yet interesting enough to somehow start exploring the adaptive world with it. And yeah, you see down there how it is implemented, that use case. So the demo application that this talk is about is provided as two service applications, so the control service and the ACC service. The ACC service is representing the software in the vehicle, so it does this acceleration, deceleration, keeps track of the state of the vehicle. And the control service is receiving keyboard commands and sends them over as ACC commands. So it represents the user interface of the ACC. Yeah, so very, very basic. And as I said, it is an example to illustrate AUTOSAR adaptive use. So the idea is to let the person learning about AUTOSAR experience it from this perspective. Assume you are now developing this ACC application. How can AUTOSAR Adaptive help you with that? So here is how it goes. So what you see here is again the same application, the two services placed on top of the stack. Yeah, it's what you see here is how AUTOSAR Adaptive likes to represent, let's say, the main so-called functional clusters. They are, yeah, a nice bunch, and as you can already see, it is already quite complex, and there is no intuition what is used for what. And particularly if you're new to the methodology, it helps if you are very clear about what is something like the red thread throughout the entire session. And so what we do here is we have defined a set of requirements for the application, and then we show how AUTOSAR Adaptive can be used to fulfill those requirements, those application requirements. And it turned out that this is quite useful, so we like it, and yeah, that's the reason why we introduce it now to the open source. So let me show how it works for some examples. So Yeah, so what you see here is, let's go to one. It refers to communication management. That's typically the starting point. So one big benefit of using AUTOSAR Adaptive is to enable the inter-process and inter-ECU communication. And yeah, so this requirement can be fulfilled with the communication management module, and I think it's simple enough to have something like an anticipation what would happen if that is working, and you can easily have that sensation of, wow, it works, I managed to let those things communicate, and I'm on track with my tutorial progress. And similar things happen here, for example, with persistency. So there is a requirement that says every drive cycle when you engage with the ACC should be persisted on the hard disk. And here again, Adaptive Autosar comes in handy with the persistency cluster, and you learn then there how that is used, and you can verify how that drive cycles are then stored. Another one would be the time sync. So there is a requirement that says it might be dangerous to engage with this ACC at high speeds, let's say 90 kilometers per hour, and you want a log record about the time that this vehicle has spent in this high-speed scenario or high-speed maneuver. And again, we use an Adaptive Autosar component to determine the time and the persistency to store it. So you see how that works. It's quite basic, but it is necessary to be that basic because there's a lot to be distracted with when you work with Adaptive Autosar. So we have had some comments and some expectation that it resonates when we said things like it's not exactly easy to read something like an RR XML or to get it going. Yeah, in fact, there are a lot of complaints about how can we ever somehow manage that easily to introduce AUTOSAR to new developers, and so having a neat example that is flavored with something that is easy to follow with, is indeed helping to get get the messages across. Yeah, so what is the coverage until today? So we have managed to integrate more and more functional clusters into the example. We are at the moment at around 80%, and we are interested to share all of this. There are 2-3 functional clusters remaining that has to do with priorities, but also with availability of functionality by the stack providers. You are potentially aware that AUTOSAR Adaptive is a platform that is still in ongoing development and in feature enrichment, and so that's it's not considered to be a final definite example that then works in all times with every AUTOSAR version upcoming. But we have to continue integrating clusters that are coming along. Yeah, so what would you get in addition? So of course you would get the example code, but that is of limited use and of limited fun because when you have seen our XML examples, they are at least I would say challenging. If you are new to it, that's not fun. It's not something nice you would read. It's like reading the telephone book or something. Yeah, so that is the experience. And so you are desperate when you start engaging with AUTOSAR Adaptive to somehow have something to refer to that put sense into it and that helps you to follow it. And so we provide documentation. We provide these example requirements. Here you see one that says the DCC application shall store a key value pair in the persistence memory at the end of each drive cycle. So then you have a mission when you look into the code and you understand, okay, this small piece of this entire big thing is achieving this, and then you have an idea, for example, with the integration architecture, how can you properly express what you have achieved in automotive compliance, particularly when you think about the software development cycle in a SPICE manner. And as it is listed there are things like documentation, example requirements, integration architecture, build setup, and test cases included. And so it's considered to be a full package, as one would expect it when you are new to the methodology. Next one is already the demonstration. So what you see here are two terminals. One terminal is the right-hand one is the keyboard application. The left-hand one is that one that is at the moment present is the ACC. And the engineer that is demonstrating here, he is demonstrating that he's pushing the button to increase the speed, and on the other side he shows that this button press indeed affects the speed state of this vehicle, so it increases. He's actually going for that state when you reach this high velocity driving that is considered dangerous, where you would want to have this drive lock, and so he's pushing the button all along until he's reaching 90 kilometers per hour, and then by requirements the time recording should start with the time sync, and I think it is reached now, and now he decelerates because the requirement says I want to measure the overall time. So it's a very simple task that everybody would have an intuition how to achieve that, and you would find that then in this example. Yeah, so I think in the end what he's showing here now, I think I missed a bit of it, is that indeed the drive cycle, the dangerous part was 21 seconds, and he's now opening the key value store of the persistency and shows that it is in fact stored in that file that represents this key value store, and this is what you are looking for when you do a tutorial. Yeah, so in the end you want to have some consistent impression that you managed to accomplish what was the task. Yeah, so finding this in the end in this store, that's all what this is about, and then you have some trust that you could redo that and maybe apply it with your own things. Yeah, so it's really all about providing a bit of light at the end of the tunnel when you're exposed to the methodology. Okay, so let me continue with challenges. So, I mean, it has been said, AUTOSAR is not open source. So the AUTOSAR Adaptive stack is implemented by third party, is closed source, if you want to define it like that. The standard itself, the specification, is open source, and there are discussions of how to continue here. And when you go beyond this scenario that we are discussing here, let's assume you are developing an application that you would like to share with the community, an AUTOSAR Adaptive application. Then it's all about finding a community that can reuse it. And in this scenario where you provide an application and where the community appreciates your contribution and uses it, you have at the moment to share the same stack. Yeah, so that limits the community because there are many stacks out there, and it partitions the automotive space at the moment. I'm not saying I have a solution for that, I'm just trying to highlight a problem that will emerge once we are at that point where we want to share applications. And just to provide you an idea why that is, I mean, you would potentially say there is an open standard, and if everybody sticks to it, why would there be such a problem? And it results from the fact that the standard doesn't define, for example, how you implement the stack. So the generated code is, for example, not exchangeable in between the stacks. So you would have to regenerate the stubs that you are using. And the tools that you use to manage, and even the RXML, the people that have tried it would agree that's not exactly easy to migrate an application from one stack to the other. And then there are these extensions. So we love them because the stack has limitations, and we have great ideas out there in the vendor space, and these extensions are valuable, but they limit then the sharing across as we want to have it in open source. And yeah, I think this demo application, I mean, it's very simple, and it's a very obvious benefit to have that available to everyone independent of the stack, and it can serve, and that's the idea here, as a kind of poster child, yeah, as a kind of exhibit A example of what we need to overcome in open source when it comes to using adaptive applications across stacks. Yeah, let me conclude. The goals of the contributions is that we would like to contribute this ADAAA example to share insight and experience in the AUTOSAR adaptive methodology. We want to engage with the open source community. This is also new to us. like to everyone, at least in this size. And we would like to help that the automotive industry have some reference examples when they discuss issues. Yeah? So what would be very nice is that when we say, okay, we have a certain problem as automotive community, imagine a scenario in, for example, this ADAAA, and now you want to achieve this and that, and you can't do that, and can you tell me a way? Yeah, that would be easy, because then everybody would somehow know what in what setting you are in, and we could simply set this up and look at it together, and it would facilitate collaboration. So it can be a great device to establish further communication beyond teaching AUTOSAR. And when it comes now to the future efforts of the ZF, we would like to achieve with you, with the community, to enrich it with more tutorial content, to complete the functional cluster coverage, to maintain it for the upcoming AUTOSAR adaptive releases. Yeah, so that's ongoing maintenance effort. The standard is changing, and you have to maintain that. And we would also like to have a solution to provide this example for different AUTOSAR adaptive stacks. Yeah, and that's the end of this talk. And I'm really very much looking forward to working with you on this. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Andre. Questions? Catering will not be available before 4, so take that time, ask questions. So, while I go upstairs, one question from the audience. Will this be compatible with the planned AUTOSAR Vehicle API open source initiative, which has been recently announced?
So we didn't consider it yet, but I think that is something we could, for example, discuss as the next thing. Yeah, so it's an example. What we should, I think that is the initial vision. What we should do is keep it simple, yeah, because it is the go-to place for people in ZF in the future to learn first things about this. Yeah, so maybe we can have chapters. Yeah, something like first the AUTOSAR itself, and then things that go beyond that.
So if I clone it, I need one specific proprietary AUTOSAR stack to get it compiled, or?
Yeah, so we are working with different stacks, and in fact we will also try to contribute to have specific build folders available for different stacks. So right now the discussion is still ongoing with the vendors we collaborate with. What would be their opinion, and we would like to provide a convenient solution that is easily manageable and somehow fine with everyone.
So would it maybe be an idea that you have some kind of mock layer that you are able to compile it and test it?
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah, good idea.
Okay, question from the online chat that to some extent touches to the IP topic I already raised after the previous presentation. Does AUTOSAR organization allow open source projects to run AUTOSAR or to use AUTOSAR methodology? I remember the AUTOSAR agreement only allows AUTOSAR partners to use the methodology. And there's an extension to that question, which is, if this project source code does not include AUTOSAR adaptive stack, then how to run it?
That's exactly the point. Yeah, I think you nailed it. It's impossible at the moment to use this without having access to a stack. Yeah, I mean, we were discussing it back and forth, and there is the so-called AUTOSAR demonstrator. This is the reference implementation of the AUTOSAR consortium, but it's also not open source. Yeah, so you would still need to be a member. I have no answers for you today, but I think that's exactly what I meant with poster child. Yeah, so we could raise this together and say, okay, it is obviously limiting the spreading of the methodology, that there is no runtime for it. Yeah.
And that's exactly why I mentioned that before. We have activities right now between the different organizations. At AUTOSAR, at SOFI, there was just a question related to SOFI. It's COVISAR, it's now Software-Defined Vehicle Working Group. And I think I'm personally convinced that we should not raise the impression that we are in competition and fight for against each other. I think everyone has a certain part of the spectrum, what we would like to do, and we should find ways to work together. And that's what I see. So I had a call, I was invited to talk a little bit about open source and what, from an open source perspective, would mean to open up AUTOSAR. And I see this willingness and the ideas to open up AUTOSAR, right? It's not that they say, we don't want this. The problem is they have a 15 or 18-year legacy, although from an IP policy perspective, and it's not changed from now to then, so they need this discussion, right? And there are different business models involved. The OEMs maybe have different interests than the tool vendors and the stack vendors. So it's not that easy to change, but I can feel from the discussions I had and we have in large organizations that they're at least thinking about that open source could even be relevant for them. And I would assume that we will find a solution for this one. But for now, as you said, there is no solution, right? We need to find a way. At the same time, most of the organizations you are representing are although members of the AUTOSAR consortium, the other consortia. So it's not, AUTOSAR is not decoupled from the people or from the organizations which are represented by the people in this room, right? And I think so there's a way to influence each other, to talk to each other, to get something which is useful for the industry. So I think I will talk later in my talk a little bit about the last 2 days in Ludwigsburg. And there is this huge concern how software development could be handled in the future. And I think it's not that we are on the best place and everything is fine, everything is working. I think there is a certain need to get things done together. Everyone can feel that need, and so I think that we will find solutions, or you will find, it's the community effort, right? The community will find a solution to make this possible midterm. If anyone disagrees, I'm happy to have the comments for disagreements.
So it's not a disagreement, it's just a comment. There is now ongoing discussions about open sourcing one of the AUTOSAR Classic stacks. So I know there are a lot of discussions what kind of license to apply, how to kind of get it out of AUTOSAR and as open source projects. Maybe this is also would be an opportunity to kind of to piggyback on this discussion, see how it can be proceeded.
Yeah. Well, so. Any other questions? I don't see any online questions. So for the online participants, oh, there's one more question. So let's go with that one.
Thank you for the great presentation. You showed in the presentation about sharing the application component. Is that also a possibility across the suppliers?
Sorry, what?
No, you showed one slide about sharing the application components, not only the AUTOSAR part of it, so open source. Is that also a reality? Or is it also looking into that option within open source project?
So as I said, so I don't have an answer for you right now for how to get that other part into the open source, but yeah, I think that's exactly what we are all figuring now.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Thanks a lot.